come up close if you'd like. Keep going as long as you want. I got a little feedback, sorry. Keep going as long as you want, but I'm gonna start here. Thank you to Laura. I want to say thank you to Nicole and the entire team. It's great to be here at TransTech and to shine a spotlight on music and sound and one of the next game changers in personalized medicine and transformative technology, hearables. I'm going to bring up, we have an amazing collection of panelists that are going to come up and speak in about 15 minutes, but before they do, I'm going to give you a 30,000-foot overview of how we can transform the future of humanity through music, sound, and hearables. I'm going to start by showing you a very short clip of film, and I'm going to show it to you 2 times. And each time I want you to pay very special attention to this guy on the screen here, the main character, and I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. Who is he, and what's his story? And please keep a note of it as you do it, because I might call on you afterward to share. So when you're ready, here we go. Who is he, and what's his story? You'll see it twice. All right, who'd like to share? Somebody like to tell us what they saw? All right, I don't know if the pass around mic's ready, so can you just shout out really nice and loud, stand up so everybody can hear you, because they have to hear you online too, so. The first one, oh, here, we have a mic for you. Here we go. Coming from both directions. It just helps our people out in the community online that they can hear you more clearly.
The first one, I thought he was a bad dude. I thought he stole the plane ticket and he was going off to go do some bad thing. And as he was driving away, he was like, happy, I'm going to go perform some criminal act. And then the second one, it was like victorious music. He made some great realization. And he was going to go off to see his lover where he got this ticket, and he was going to surprise her to go see something.
Anybody else want to get one more? Anybody else want to share their story? Oh, we only want one brave soul. That's all right. I think you all have your own stories in your mind. We can move on. You might want to share with each other on a break. But what was the only thing that changed? Music. Right. So music literally changes the narration in our mind and changes how we experience not only what we see on a screen in a movie, but how we experience our own reality in the world around us. It's the subconscious narrative to our life. And as Nicole said in the beginning of the conference, when we change our narrative, it's the first thing we have to do before we change our understanding of ourselves, because the stories that we tell ourselves and the stories of how we see the world, and it's our perception that really makes that, is how we define ourselves and our role in the world. And we have to have that very clear before we can actually actualize what we want to do on a larger scale in the world. Because music impacts more areas of the human brain than any other stimuli, it's a powerful tool for transformative technology and a number of other fields, obviously. So, sound or music? Two very related but very kind of different fields in a way, and we cross the lines, but obviously music is at the heart of sound. 2 weeks ago, sound is at the heart of music, forgive me, or vice versa. Two weeks ago, I was at a conference in Los Angeles called the Sacred Science of Sound Conference, and it was more focused specifically on sound and sound healing and modalities that work in sound healing, similar to this, but only on that, not really on music as a broader modality. And at that conference, we learned a lot, and if I talk about sound healing, it's a big subject, so I'm not really going to be able to get into it that deeply, but I promised Nicole I would touch on it a little bit. You know, sound healing typically uses specific frequencies to pinpoint or address maybe an imbalance in the mind, the body, or what we call the human biofield, which is an electrical field that exists around the body that many say in the field say that it contains many of our subconscious stories, our trauma, our past. So sound healers traditionally work in that space and bring that space into a center, and then they play their music on their cell phones. So, again, without going too far in it, many of you have experienced this in one way or another. In a more traditional, ancient way, sound baths have become very popular, so you've probably experienced things with Tibetan bowls, or maybe treatments with tuning forks, or maybe you've been on more technologically advanced modalities using sound tables. In the medical field, we have, obviously ultrasound is dealing with sound frequencies, and we've talked a lot here about neuromodulation, non-invasive neuromodulation, and sound is a pathway that's used for neuromodulation. And then in just the more kind of practical ways, we can think of sound as in things like noise cancellation and other ways, and Starkey spoke, the gentleman from Starkey spoke extensively about what they're doing from the hearing aid world. But, without me, I'm not an expert in sound healing, so I'm going to, move on. But I want to recommend somebody who's really inspires me in the space right now, and that's a woman named Eileen McCusick. And this is a book she published a couple of years ago called Tuning the Human Biofield. And it's kind of a mind blower. And she's really doing some amazing work. So if anybody wants to do a deeper dive, I highly recommend that. But for right now, we're going to go back to music. In fact, we're going to go back about 50 years. Imagine Detroit in the 1960s, birthplace of the automobile, poster child of the Industrial Revolution, and the home of Motown records. At the age of 8, I actually cut my first 45 record out of the back of a cardboard cereal box. It was Alphabets. It was the cereal, and the song was ABC by the Jackson 5. I loved Michael. I put that puppy on my parents' turntable, dropped the needle on it, and it played. I was running around the living room and dancing like a child possessed, and I was forever hooked on music. Flash forward a few years, and I'm living in a very different Detroit. I'm in junior high school. Corruption, racial tension, and the collapse of the auto empire have all but decimated the city. My school is shut down, my favorite corner store is boarded up, and one of my good friends, Joey, 13 years old and addicted to heroin. I'm lying on my parents' living room floor listening to Marvin Gaye shout into my ears, "What's going on?" And I'm trying to make sense of the world around me. And the music. Well, if it wasn't for the music, I can tell you, I wouldn't be standing here with you today. Music became my lifeline, a place to seek refuge from the chaos outside and to dream. And I dreamed big. I dreamed of making music one day that could bring joy and inspiration to millions of people all over the world who are feeling just like me. And I've been blessed to have a very rich career doing a lot of different things, like most entrepreneurs. And so whether I'm writing the score to a Hollywood movie or creating a video campaign to help change the mindset of world leaders at the Vatican or Parliament, or working with at-risk children, using music and storytelling-based modalities to help them learn social emotional learning skills and vital life skills, working with founders of tech companies to help them reach peak performance in their what they want to do in the world, or just many things I've have the freedom to do, and to work with health organizations and companies who are trying to bring mind-body practices in through technology and programs to help improve life and quality of life and well-being. In the mix of all of it has been music. Now, let's go back in time again. This time, China, 2600 BC. When the official medical text in China had already documented the therapeutic benefits and the cognitive health benefits of music. If you look at this symbol on the left side of your screen, that's the ancient Chinese symbol for music. Can you read that one? And if you look at the one on the right, that's the ancient Chinese symbol for medicine. And if you notice, they're only slightly different. That's because for thousands of years across countless cultures, music has been the heart of medicine. Flash forward a few thousand years, and those benefits and a myriad of others have been validated by countless scientific studies and real-world applications. In 2014, when I first joined the faculty at Exponential Medicine, it was to do similar things of what we're trying to do here, to see how we could expand the application of alternative modalities through like music and meditation and through new technologies, and bring them into the mainstream and into the healthcare system. Music was part of that too. At that time, and still, the research, even though we knew a lot about music's impact on the brain, the research was very siloed and extremely underfunded. Recently, the NIH just announced a $20 million fund to help accelerate and improve research in the field and applications in the field. But as I look out at you, you might be asking me, why should I care? And why should we in the TransTech community be thinking about using music and sound and integrate it into our products and programs? Aside from the history, the long documented history, and the new wave of scientific research. Well, let's look at some of the efficacy we're already seeing applied in the field. This one I got to read, it's a long list because there's so many things. So if we look at healthcare alone, we have Pain management we're dealing with, anxiety, depression, PTSD, neonatal care, speech therapy, hospice, autism, Parkinson's, and that $540 billion health threat, Alzheimer's. And when we add when we add human potential and flourishing, a big theme of this conference, we get athletic performance, meditation, focus, longevity, sleep, emotional intelligence, human connection, creativity, alternative states, and flow. Because music has the capacity to activate more areas of the human brain than any other activity, it makes it an ideal partner and catalyst for healing and optimizing personal potential. Here is just a couple of the companies that are doing things in the field already applying the use of music. I'll just touch on these quickly, and then I'm going to bring some of them onto the stage to expound a little bit more. But music and memory, which since I first introduced it to exponential medicine in 2014, which uses music to help address the issue of cognitive decline, already has 75,000 users in 5,000 elder care facilities, and another one, SingFit, which actually supports group singing, and a more recent technology, already has 26,000 participants, and I think 450 care facilities with 1,800 trained facilitators. On the other side of the screen and the other side of the spectrum, you've heard a little bit already this past couple days about Calm, the leading meditation app in the marketplace, which boasts 134 million streams. And my guess is that that number will double in the next year, at least, because of their recent partnership with Samsung, Harman, and their hiring of one of the lead executives from Universal Music, who's already forming partnerships and exclusive content deals with major artists like Moby. Down in the bottom of the screen, I don't know if you can see there over the heads in front of you, but Liquid Mind is one of the leading music meditation brands, and that was started about 10 years ago by one of my former writing partners, Chuck Wild. It has 1 million daily downloads. And one of the things, you see Starbucks up there. So why is Starbucks in the screen? Well, one of my partners in front of me from Toronto brought me in to help their company. Dave Sabara, sitting right here, raise your hand, brought me in to help them with the music and health aspects of a campaign they were doing for Starbucks to find a way to help people wake up into a healthier, happier day, not just using coffee, but using music. It's an interesting project primarily because to look at this research and to go through about 70 studies, I really had to bring together a cross-discipline of experts in positive psychology, neuroscience, medicine, music therapy, music production, and composition. And then the one that's one of my favorite, I don't know if you guys have heard of this company, Not Impossible, by Mick Ebeling and his team. They do the impossible. And one of the things that they released last year was a body sensor technology to help the deaf population experience live concerts. Amazing stuff. There's a lot more that can be done. Again, I'll bring up some of the people who are doing some of the work in just a few minutes. Raise your hand if you love music. Well, we might have one or two closet listeners, but it looks like it's pretty universal. You know, because this community cares so much about having truly transformative experiences and bringing this to the world at scale, I would be remiss not to point out the unbeatable engagement level that music has over other modalities. People typically report music as one of the top 10 sources of pleasure. Some people spend more money on music than they do on prescription drugs, and over 90% of the videos and the top viewed videos in the history of YouTube are music. And if my predictions are right, by early 2020, 24 of those will have crossed the 3 billion viewer mark. That's each piece of music being listened to 3 billion times on just one platform. And when it comes to immersion or immersive technologies, sound is the original immersive experience. Our brain is wired for immersive sound. It's always tracking in an immersive space. The more immersive the experience you have, and you're creating or you're producing, the more effect that sound has within that experience. But here's the piece I don't want you to miss. The revolution that's coming, or maybe it's already here. It's the hearables revolution. So imagine the near future. You're sporting this fashionable pair of ear buddies that are hanging out in your ears and just comfortably and looking nice as you go about your day. And they're doing this amazing stuff. Catch up here. Imagine as they're tucked away, they're inside of these tiny devices is a turbocharged computer, a high-fidelity audio and hearing enhancement system, and a whole range of biometric sensors that's specifically designed to track and improve your health and well-being in real time. These stylish tech companions will be able to do numerous things, and you heard our friend from Starkey talk about it the other day, and a few other people, but just a couple of those things: filter out noise, measure in real time our emotional and psychological states. And this is what, when it comes to sound and music, what we'll be able to do that's going to change research and change the way we apply these technologies is it's going to be able to measure in real time the impact that audio input has on our performance, our productivity, and our well-being. We're approaching the perfect storm. We're bringing together exponential technologies like nanotech, sensors, big data, artificial intelligence, and voice analytics to track a whole range of real-time biometrics through the gateway of one of the most powerful gateways to the inner workings of the human mind, the human ear. If you're watching the field, and you're seeing major players from, like many of these on the screen, form partnerships and position themselves and take over patents. I think there's about 100 patents in competition right now in the space, lining up to seize the opportunity. And that opportunity is going to change dramatically in August of next year when a law goes into effect called the over-the-counter hearing aid law that's going to break down another level between the wellness and medical community. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. So what we're going to see is the emergence of a $73 billion industry of this closed-loop system that Adam and several others talked about earlier, where we're delivering content and measuring its real-time effect. It's going to change not only the technology, but it's going to change the research. The convergence of exponential technologies with centuries of proven efficacy around sound and music is going to be a game changer. That upward, and I want to invite you as creators and entrepreneurs in the tech space to really consider integrating music and sound into what you're developing, and to partner up if you need to do that, as many of these companies, those previous companies have. And I want you to know that hearables is going to be a game changer. It's going to change, it's not only going to transform the way we measure, integrate, and personalize music for our optimal performance and well-being. It just might be the perfect storm for a whole new wave of products for human health and happiness. And isn't that what it's all about? Now, I've done enough talking, so it's time for some music. So I'm going to bring Laura back up on stage. I thank you for listening. And while she plays and does a little bit with the audience here, we're also going to bring to stage our panelists. So when she's done, we'll be ready to move into the next section. There's some amazing people coming up. Please stay. Come on, Laura. Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
So much about music. So much we are music. So I thought it would be nice to do something where you become music. But when I felt today what is appropriate, I feel almost that I want to play for you music that will resonate within you.
She's gonna play. We could either have them.
So I want
or
to
we could have them.
somehow invite you to just close your eyes and let the music take you where you need to go. And if it makes you move, you are welcome to move for sure. If it makes you shake, enjoy the shake. If it makes you cry, I think we are all here friends. You can allow those emotions, that energy that needs to move, to move. So really allow yourself to flow. And I'll do the same.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now that we got you all dialed back in, I'm going to introduce this wonderful cast of crew here, and then each one of them is going to take a few minutes and talk about their work and what they're seeing in the field. I'm going to ask them a couple questions, and then we're going to invite your questions. We'd really like you to participate in this. We want to know how we can serve you as a community, is why we're here. So please, let us know what your needs are and what you're curious about. So I'm just going to do a really quick, I'm just going to say how I know them. And I'm going to let them do the official introduction when they each speak about their own work. So Tracy, I've known for several years now. We talk all the time about what's happening in technology. We both come out of the commercial world, me out of films and the music industry, and her out of the game and also film industry a little bit, and have moved in the last 10 years in the field of technology together, and bringing that experience in. And she's a wonderful resource of information, and she's got some great companies she's working with. So I'll let her do more of an introduction. Happy to have you here, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, I've also known for a few years. I actually met his founding partner of Focus at Will Henschel, when I was first at Exponential Medicine in 2000, and not Exponential, Singularity University in 2011, and they first launched Focus at Will, and we've become really good friends, always sharing what's happening in the latest in neuroscience and what we can do for the next evolution. We have pretty deep and fun conversations. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Frank. Glad to be here.
John Alexiou is one of the founders and president of Subpac, and I met he and his partner a few years ago when they were just getting off the ground. We've had fewer conversations in between, but I hope we have many more, and I'm glad to have you here to talk a little bit more about immersive sound and the technology that you're building. And
Great to be here. Thank you.
And Laura, you've seen several times over the past 2 days, bringing her music, Alchemy, and she's going to talk a little bit more about sound and the effects of sound on the human system. And great to have you all here.
Thank you so much, Frank.
So I'm going to let Tracy start off, and I'll try to. I'm driving the slides, so I just have to remember not to get too engulfed in your conversations. I have to pay attention. Okay, take it away, Tracy. You can.
Thank you,
why
Frank.
don't you stand up? So yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about where I came from. I joined the digital health and wellness field probably about 5 years ago. But before that, I made video games in the commercial space. How many of you guys here ever played Rock Band, Guitar Hero, Dance Central? Okay, so that's what I did. I did that for about 15 years. And what's amazing when I think about it is that back then we were making a transformative technology, but it just wasn't called that. Most people thought we were making entertainment. But the power that the music had on the people that were playing that game, and I think a bunch of you probably had that experience, was that your emotional health and well-being changed. Like, we were able to change the way people felt. And so after really looking at what was possible with really engaging video game design, the power of music that you loved, I learned so much about how we could connect with ourselves and with each other through this really powerful way of experiential design that I wanted to bring it to people that were in need. And so about 5 years ago, I joined this community. I spent some time at Muse, which I'm not going to talk a bunch about today, but it is a product that uses sound in a fundamentally important way, and if you guys are unfamiliar with it, check it out. But what I want to talk about is that the work that I did with Rock Band and with Guitar Hero and Dance Central is directly related to the 3 projects that I want to talk about today that I'm working with in this field. So the first one, The first one is I'm working with Dr. Ghazali. Some of you guys probably saw Adam talk earlier today on one of the newer games in his lab called Coherence. And what we're doing, which is quite interesting, is taking a bunch of learnings that I have had in experience design, bringing it into the lab and creating a closed loop rhythm action video game. Now, the intention, of course, is to really learn about cognition. What we're studying and what we will be studying is what happens, what is the impact of becoming more rhythmic. Now, when I was making Rock Band and I was learning how to play drums, which was like blowing my mind that I even was able to do that, I kept thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if we could measure what was happening in our brains? And I think now it's incredible that we have this new way of creating experiences where we can leverage sensors, we can leverage assessment, we can understand over time what is happening in our brains when we're creating experiential treatments. So coherence is it's in the works. The first study that we're going to do on one platform is on an iPad with children with dyslexia. And then we're also creating a game full body in VR. And that will also go to many different populations that we'll be studying over time and understanding differences between the platforms, between the experiences, and of course, across different functions that Adam and his group are studying about cognition. All right, the next one that I want to talk about is a company called Mila that I'm working with. So they are taking music therapy methods and bringing it really to scalable accessibility. So most music therapy is one-to-one, one-to-few. And unfortunately, this is not scalable. A lot of people don't actually get assessed for learning disabilities. So this company, their first product that they're making, they're using active participation. Things like singing, dancing, clapping, things like that, that are really part of traditional music therapy, but bringing it into music games. So one of the exciting things that's happening with Mila is that they have a relationship with Children's Hospital of LA. And next year, they're going to go into a study, and they're going to see whether or not the work that they create in these games actually can reduce the time that traditional music therapy duration of sort of effective change. And so we'll see how that goes. Super fun team. The next product that I'm working with is with a company called Ripple Effects. So Ripple Effects creates SEL programs from pre-K all the way to high school. And what we're doing is we're introducing these really fun, adorable, interactive songs for young children. And what we're doing is we're taking what many of us in this community understand as global contemplative practices, things like insight, Zen, yoga, CBT, flow, and we're secularizing it, we're translating it into something that young children can learn, and we're teaching them awareness, how to notice their feelings, how to notice their breath. We're teaching them how to breathe. We're teaching them how to be body aware, when they should move big and when they should move small, and how to talk to themselves. And we're doing this through songs, because that's one of the 10 differentiated learning styles that are in the programs. So I'm really excited to be able to bring the things that I've learned through the commercial game industry to people that are really in need. These children that Ripple Effects are reaching, they're teaching them transformative practices to face trauma, to become more resilient. This is going into mental health interventions in many, many schools. And so I think, the most important thing that I want to share with you guys is that there's an amazing way in which we can take what we've learned, Frank and many of us that have been in the commercial entertainment field, and, we have created really high value, high production value products, movies, storytelling, film, video games, and music. And we need to bring those more and more into the TransTech products that we're making, because it's all about the emotional health and well-being, and the folks in the entertainment industry are really, really good at changing people's emotions. And that's a lot of what I feel like we have an opportunity to do in this field. So we'll have a fun conversation. Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Vitale, and I'm the co-founder at Focus at Will, where we do scientifically personalized music for work. So we've done a pretty deep dive into what parts of music are for entertainment, and what if we take that part out of it and we just have some really good music that you can hit a button and work to. We'll go into that a little bit deeper. First, let me give you a little bit about my background. So at age 9, I got my first guitar, and my wonderful parents gave me guitar lessons, and I just loved it, changed my life. But when I got to college, everyone said, well, you can't be a musician, you got to do something with your life. So I went to school for engineering, and when I got out, I said, forget that, I want to do music software. So I started making sounds for computer keyboards on CD-ROM back in the late 80s. So what if you had a $100,000 Steinway, but you could buy a CD-ROM for $100 that put all those sounds into your keyboard at home, and then you had these great instruments that sounded fantastic. So I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. The market was kind of small, so I ended up having to do some other stuff, including making drum machines. Also worked for Nintendo. We did an AI voice engine way back in the day before there was that kind of thing for their Formula One games. So we had a lot of fun in gaming and music. Then I got into music production. I had a small recording studio in Detroit, and I was lucky enough to work with really big artists. I actually did some of Eminem's first recordings. I worked with the Red Hot Chili Peppers and many bands on Warner Brothers, George Clinton. And in that process, I really learned the beauty of integrating technology and art. You know, it's like, it used to be an old school recording where it was all analog, but now it's going very digital and computer. And I had really seen the light that someone who can integrate those two worlds becomes really powerful to integrate those two worlds. From there, I was lucky enough to do a lot of corporate film animation work. I had some really big clients like General Motors and Toyota, did some stuff for HBO, Amblin Films with Spielberg with some motion capture stuff. So I've had this very strange, diverse background, and I always felt like, how is this going to all add up? And in 2009, my best friend who had met our friend here told us, you know, this new iPad thing's going to come out. What if we put together a company and we made some kind of strange contextual software that whatever you see on the screen, you can have audio that follows. And we put together a quick pitch deck, and somehow we got someone to buy into that idea. And we actually hacked into the Kindle ebook reader, and we made Hollywood soundtracks for ebooks. And we thought, boy, this is going to be a quick cash out. We'll have Amazon buy it in a week. And we did a market test, and when they said, this is really interesting, but how important is this? Is this a transformative technology, or is this something that's just kind of a fun feature set? And it tested out pretty good, but didn't become the thing that was going to be the game changer for Kindle. But here's interesting what happened. We went to Singularity University, and there, the mission is, how do you take technology and help 1 billion people? And we had the aha moment of, wait, we could take that technology we built for the Kindle, and we can turn it into something that helps people to focus better. So we started Focus at Will. And there the concept was, you can actually go to the next slide. How do I build this huge library for focus? How do I do all the neuroscience research? How do you do all that? It becomes quite an endeavor. But we got it done, and we became scientifically personalized music. So that's one of the big concepts that I want to talk about here is some of our data that helped us get there. So if you can go to the next slide. We were lucky enough to get a really good science and tech board, and they brought some perspectives that we would have never seen just coming from the music part of it. So Dr. Evian Gordon really gave us this concept that I want to share with everyone, that if you think of music, not in terms of entertainment, but on an energy continuum, and you think about personalities on an energy continuum. Here we have a little picture of a St. Bernard on the lower left and a Chihuahua. Now, some of your friends, you know, are pretty low-key energy, and some of them are pretty high. And the intuitive concept is you think that everyone who is trying to focus might need ambient music or chill-out music. Well, that's not really the case. What we learned from Evian's biggest brain database in the world is that if you think of it as an energy continuum, and everybody has kind of a unique baseline range frequency of where they operate, and you can match that with music, what happens is their non-conscious mind has kind of calmed down and had enough fun, and their frontal lobes can open up and allow them to focus. So what we've done is started conducing and contriving and making music channels that kind of support this. So here you see things like nature ambient sounds, very low rhythms. So some of our friends would do really good with that. This is also why if you pipe in music in a general office space, you might think it's going to help and it'll help better than no music, but you're always going to alienate some people that need different energies of music. So it's a very personal experience, and we realized this. We had to figure out a way to, what kind of music do I need? Where do I fit on this energy spectrum? So you can go to the next slide. So Dr. Julia Mossbridge helped us figure out that, wait a minute, you've got all these users, and if we can look at who uses what music naturally and what's working for them, and we can kind of overlay some some personality tests, we can coalesce this data and we can figure out, for the first time ever, the question of how do I know which music is going to work better for me to focus? So what we did is we have our users now do a short onboard quiz, and then the system compares their results with over 2 million users that have come through our system, and they get a recommended channel. So we have a recommended channel that's science-based. It sounds simple, but it's a really big breakthrough because many people start with something that's totally wrong, and then they realize that, oh, this doesn't work, maybe I shouldn't be trying to focus with music, but it does when it's prescribed correctly. So one of the big breakthroughs I really wanted to share with you, 2 nuggets, is the energy music continuum and then finding your personal space on that. And if you get prescribed the right channel, then the music experience becomes much more dialable, detailable, and with nuances can be the ultimate for focus. Let's see, what else do we have on the last slide? Oh, so we invite everyone to try it out. We have a 14-day free trial. If you take a picture of that code and put it in, you'll use the system completely free for 14 days and see how it works for you. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Oops, you need it back? Go.
Oh, yeah, free trial.
Quicker on the camera, quicker on
Got
the
it.
camera. There you go.
We'll
Everybody
post it
good?
on the site also.
Okay.
Hi, guys. My name's John Alexiou. I started a company called Subpac. Out of curiosity, how many people have heard of Subpac? Okay, cool. Super cool. And also out of curiosity, how many people like bass in music? Right? Bass drum, sine wave, funky bass guitar. Cool. Well, Subpac is a hardware and software platform that optimally delivers high-fidelity feeling to music and sound. We focus on low frequencies, so 1 hertz to about 300 hertz. And I think before we sort of talk about some of the places that we work in and our impact in the well-being space, I want to show a short video that describes a sound practitioner that we work with and some of the work that he's doing with our technology.
My name is Aaron Zahavi. I was injured about 9 months ago. I fell about 40 or 50 feet, landed on my back, shattered my spine, compressed my spinal cord. Came home from the hospital and rehab 2.5 months later, paralyzed, paraplegic in a wheelchair. So obviously a full recalibration of everything in my life. I had different therapy sessions. I was working with Kevin Isaac doing the neuromuscular release therapy, and we added a session with Torquem G doing the quantum harmonics and the sound therapy. That was the first time I was also introduced to the Subpac. The effect that it had on my body was profound, and I just felt clear. I was able to find my center like I've never been able to have in my life, to have balance where there was no pain in my back. Even though I can't feel my legs or know when they're touching the ground, I still knew my center point in my balance.
My name is Torquem G, and I'm a sound healer and meditation facilitator from Los Angeles. Quantum harmonics is designed ground up to be a live and flow-based meditative modality that incorporates synthesizer frequencies that are tuned to 432 hertz. One of my real interests is the way in which sound, frequency, and especially physical sound can influence and affect the physiology and consciousness of a person. But it wasn't until I met Aaron that everything really changed for me, and I knew that there was something compelling going on here with the use of these sounds, frequencies, in conjunction with the Subpac. Aaron's experience was absolutely amazing. When I got home, he had sent me a video testimonial of his account afterwards, and I was really impressed, but not shocked or surprised by the way in which it really helped him find balance, stillness, and helped with his body's alignment.
It's hard to explain, but it was just an innate knowing. When I hit my center point, I knew it was there. My body felt balanced. My back didn't feel any pain. Since I got my own Subpac, I use it through various things I do throughout the day. I use it when I exercise. I use it when I meditate, I use it when I'm just sitting around, and just shows the benefit, the value of the work with frequency and vibrations, because that's what we are. Everything is energy. So you match the right energy and the right frequency, creates a calibration and a harmony within the body.
So at Subpac, we really believe that if we harness bass frequencies optimally, we can really heal ourselves, optimize ourselves, and ground us. For us, a big part of what we do is walking arm in arm with the creative community, music producers, sound designers, practitioners. Right now, we're in about 45,000 plus studios around the world, from some of the biggest pop producers to the biggest underground hit producers. And we've got about a million plus optimized. Oh, do you mind going back? We have about a million, and about a million and a million, 1.2 million optimized tracks for feeling. So in other words, creators are using our technology to create some of the biggest songs you hear in the radio. A little known fact is the ear is actually a brutal way to understand bass frequencies. Those big waves are optimally hitting your body. So for any sound designers out there, you know that if you're making sound with bass, if you stand in one part of the room, you experience it one way. In another, you experience it a different way. So it's a real tool that's being used now to help transform how people experience sound. One of the things that, you can say on this one, one of the things that has been in our DNA since the beginning is this idea of how can high fidelity vibrations really help from a well-being standpoint. For the first couple years of our existence, it was sort of a loose relationship of scientists, artists, technologists. But over the last year or so, we've really sort of reached out and put out a call to action to the community out there that follows us and said, hey, who's interested in really exploring how this idea of deep physical music can optimally be delivered? And we've had some unbelievable folks come through, from some of the biggest car companies in the world to some of the biggest athletes, to some beautiful stories that I highlight here. Pain management, so we have a gentleman that makes music in his hospital room, and he uses the Subpac and sounds that he creates to really help alleviate pain associated with sickle cell disease. There's a gentleman by the name of Mitchell, a young artist from the East Coast, that makes music with a Subpac to really help reduce the symptoms of autism, to help relax them. We've got about, I would say, 50 or so NFL players that use our product for peak performance. So really getting jacked up before a game, but calming down afterwards, especially for student athletes, it's a real issue. How do we get these athletes that are performing to calm down afterwards? So we're getting some really interesting feedback from them. On the PTSD side of things, obviously it's a huge issue. Torquem and a number of other artists are working with the veteran community to really help alleviate and reduce some of the symptoms associated with PTSD. And one of the most inspiring things is our work in the deaf and hard of hearing community. We work with a bassist by the name of Brady Watt, and have a couple of years ago visited schools on the East Coast to really teach kids from a hearing health standpoint in the deaf and hard of hearing community that sound is actually physical. So here's a reaction of some children who cannot hear, really getting to understand that, wait, sound is physical, and Brady was at the front playing a bass. So for us, and you can go to the next slide if you don't mind, for us, really our current sort of wearable and seat back products that we have, but that's just the tip of the spear. So for the last couple of years, we've been interacting with primarily companies in the automotive space to really help bring our experience into that world. And from a scaling standpoint, there's hundreds of millions, if not more, of seats being made every year that go into a car. And for those of you that have maybe spent a little time working in that industry, you know that we're moving away from people going like this in a car to really this idea of the cockpit of the future, which is how do we create in the car immersive experiences that can put people in certain states. So it's a double-edged sword working in that space because there's a lot of bureaucracy and they're huge companies, but they're really moving towards this idea of how do we create these experiences at scale in the car? And that's super interesting for us. On the right is just a shot of a couple of cinemas that we have in Korea where we're doing some market research on how does physical interaction impact people's emotion in response to certain things. And really, at the end of the day, for us, it does just come down to bass. And as this sort of music and medicine rocket ship takes off, as we start to create, smart speakers and things that don't really deliver the true impact, the full frequency spectrum of sound, let's not forget that in many cases, bass is foundational and indeed critical to delivering a grounding experience. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Inserra. And my work is all about bridging ancient technology with modern technology. And the idea of ancient technology, it's not only sound, because sound has been always used as a technological tool to create healing, to create transformation, to gathering people together, and so forth, as we know. But at the same time, ancient schools of wisdom, which I think we should keep them alive and infuse our product, our creations with those wisdoms and knowledges that, little by little are getting lost as we move farther from nature. But let me step back a little bit to let you understand as well where I come from. So I grew up in Sicily. Sicily, this piece of land in the center of the Mediterranean Sea, very tribal, where we have, along the centuries, we've had so many different influences and conquers from many different cultures. And I can sense that in my genes, I have all of those memories of these different cultures coming together. So the more I play instruments, and the more I feel that those genes, those cellular memory that vibrate and give me some kind of information that I try to share and bring in my work. But at the same time, while I was growing up with this super tribal, in this super tribal land with tribal people, I had this crazy experience that my uncle was into technology, and by the age of 8 or 9, I was playing with a Commodore 64. So I was like, wow, Commodore 64, making games by tapping numbers and letters, as some of you remember. Some probably it's already prehistorical. But anyway, just to say that in this dichotomy of growing up really wild in the street, in really nature, and at the same time having a computer, so that was informing me already since as a child. But at the same time, my biggest memory of sound was tapping on a string guitar with a pen, open string guitar, and that I remember as a very sensitive child as well, gave me this incredible experience, very ineffable. It's difficult to put words into it. But I have this memory that I could see the world of the invisible. I could experience and sense something that I was not able to see with my eyes, but to sense with my body. And that, I think, was another important piece for me to really give me this right away understanding that music was not only something that I was hearing, that everything actually is alive, because everything vibrates. And I didn't put these words that I'm putting in today, but as, again, a very sensitive kid, I could really tap into those fields. And then eventually I'm growing up, I'm in my teenager's time, we were jamming after dinner pretty much every evening. That was our way to spend time. We didn't have movie theaters, or we just started jamming and having fun. And eventually I'm moving to Rome. I'm also teaching music and starting to play all of these very unusual instruments, and pretty weird by then, like the didgeridoo from Australia, or the djembe from Africa. But again, in the 90s, those instruments, they were really super weird and not well known. And somehow in my path, they were instead, coming to me. And little by little, I was starting, thanks to the computer, to also do soundtrack for small documentaries or dance theaters, or even, dance performances and theaters. And eventually, instead, I started to do soundtrack for movies, so big companies, big productions, And why this is happening, we moved from the LP to CDs to almost MP3s, and I could really sense that something was kind of missing. And so we had bigger speakers, bigger way to, have an impact, because somehow something was starting to be synthetic. And again, I come from Sicily. It's all about nature there. Then at a certain point, I'm still working with the computers till a point that we were even using samples to create music for orchestras instead of real orchestras, because somehow the cost was less than having a real orchestra. So sometimes the compositions were so difficult that to do it in the computer was easier. And then again, I could sense this loss, and I started to almost feel completely out of my path and out of this powerful experience that I usually had with music. So just, being inspired by Burning Man, where I, went in 2003, where then I'm back into this wildness where everybody is like that, whatever. It's not only music, art per se. It's like the expression of who we are. Either you do through music or through paintings or through colors, Again, I feel the tribal. Inspired me and just gave me this awareness that, there is something that I'm losing in my path. So I moved to California, and I started right away, again, instead a company called, non-profit called Samavesha, which was a multidisciplinary performing art and music organization where I was producing site-specific performances, like Art in Nature Festival, like a festival in the Redwood Regional Park with 3,000 artists and a grand piano in the Redwoods and performers here and there. But at the same time, as an attendee, you were also inspired and invited to create art. So for me, it was like a kind of an invitation to bring this awareness, this creativity. It is something that we all have. Even when you make your coffee in the morning, you're making an act of creativity. So let's be sure that each of us is connected to that creative sources. And of course, sound is the most close thing to us. We have a voice, we have a heart that is beating. So somehow it's almost an unconscious device, an unconscious medium that we use even just by talking. So gentle by gentle and little by little, I was also doing this, not only site-specific performances, but the mission was to have people immersed into the experience, because I really believe that we need to awakening ourselves again. We need to awake this possibility that we have of tapping into the wisdom that we hold in our body, not only in our mind. And then eventually, thanks to, again, many other paths, eventually I started to go back into the acoustic world, and that's where, in this last almost 2 years, I create this sound, this immersive, really powerful immersive sound experiences. And I created these chambers of awe. Because one element also that I noticed is that every time that someone was looking at one of my instruments, they're like, wow, what is that? And they were right there, like immediate presence, immediate mindfulness of I'm here now. It's like, wow, that's interesting. Like kids, we are present. But awe also translate into acoustic waves emergence. This idea to bring back the acoustic sources, which are very rich, and use technology to augment those sources, but without losing the integrity as much as possible of the sound and the spectrum of the frequencies. Because one thing that I feel as a limitation for sure, it is not only the devices that we are using, but the content, the richness of the sound that we are bringing inside. First of all, in the way in which we record those sounds. Second, in the way in which we're listening to them, by whatever headphones, but most importantly, when we use computers as well, we lose that spectrum and richness that only acoustic sources of sound can give to us. And in that, I feel there's nourishment, because our body, as I was saying before, it is an orchestra. And so we are losing a lot of this spectrum of frequencies by not only listening to music through, again, compressions like MP3, and I don't want to just go there too much, but also we are tuning to frequencies that we don't hear, but they are there and they're stressing us. So short stories that I try to bring in the content and the sound immersive experiences, or even in my music itself, as much as possible, that richness for us to tap into a field that bring this cellular memory, this possibility of entering back into memories and visions and wisdom that is already here, so that we feel empowered, not only by taking something from outside, but releasing from something from within. So that's a little bit, my mission, and so, yeah.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. So, thank you, everybody. That was awesome. And thank you to all of you. I had a few questions for the panel, but for the sake of time and just because we're here to serve you, I think I'm just going to move us to get some questions from you. So we have a couple of microphones. And maybe if you want to raise your hand and you have a question, we can start with some of your questions. I might insert one, or we might shift up the conversation, but I really want to make sure that you don't leave with getting without us fully understanding how we can best serve the community. So does anybody want to ask a question? And then very attractive gentleman, John, here, will bring you a microphone. And if you could stand up maybe, just so everyone can see who's talking.
Hi, sure, yeah.
What's your name? Sure.
I'm Dada Narbanilananda, just easy to remember. So I've been working for most of my life with meditation and music and mantra chanting. So I'm really interested to know if any of you have worked with that, or if you know of any research that's kind of validated the effect of mantra chanting in particular. There's a lot of research around meditation, but I've found very little about the use of mantras and how that affects people's mental states or use in therapy.
I can address it. Does anybody else want to do it? Okay. So
I can have a pick on that, because I've been studying mantra and the power of it. And as you know, in India, mantras, they have the power of the speech, the vach, right? So I don't know about specific research, but I know that upstairs, actually, they were from China, I think. There was a company, actually, that had been putting Tibetan, probably, I'm sorry that I'm not giving you the right specific information, but you will still find them upstairs, where they bring the mantras into this kind of vibratory beds, and then you can not only feel the vibration, but for them, which I feel more interesting, it is about the intention that they're trying also to translate in those devices. So, again, when we talk about sound, and especially sound healing, or ways like mantras, to empower ourselves or to achieve something, it is all about intention as well. It's not about the sound only. Mm-hmm. And in that intentionality, where everything manifests. So, again, I would probably, I don't remember the name of this company, but I know that upstairs
a little bit.
Someone.
I'm a yogi of 30 years. So, mantra. So Sanskrit, which is one of the oldest languages, source languages, and at least. So mantra could be, a hook of a song in a modern day. It doesn't have to be an ancient language. If you're repeating something, it reprograms the mind. So if you add positive psychology to the music, what music does to the brain waves and forming new neural pathways, then Let It Be or something like that, or Amazing Grace can become a mantra. But in terms of the ancient, what I'm guessing you're probably speaking to in terms of like Sanskrit was the bridge between when we actually originally spoke in pre-language days through sound and through energy, before we had a linear language. And then Sanskrit kind of existed at the intersection of those two places. So each Sanskrit syllable actually has a sound, a sonic principle to it that has a certain frequency and a certain resonance that is more than just an alphabetic symbol that means something. The research, I can't point you to any really specific research, though I'm sure there's been done, and I'm happy to do a little dive for you if you want to reach out to me afterward. Just email me and send me your question. I'll find you some research on it. But just to understand, mantras like, so not just mantra, there's also practices like humming, there's also practices like oming. Anything that you're doing where you're self-generating the sound with your own body and your own voice, and you're using what we call a whole body instrument, where you're integrating sound frequencies with breath and the body, is probably one of the most powerful transformative processes you can do, you know. So, you know, beyond mantra and within mantra, it's not exactly the answer you look for, but I'm happy to help you out there. But I just want to really bring a point to that in terms of getting into meditation and sound, and why singing and vocal singing and singing in community, especially if we all were to sing together. And right now, and Adam will correct me if I'm wrong, but if we measured everybody's brain and we were all singing the same song together, we'd be firing a lot of the same neural pathways at the same time. So we actually create this amazing bridge of community in this sonic neural space just through the sound. And if we were all to ohm on the same tone and the same frequency, we would be doing the same thing. So it's a very powerful medium.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have a question?
Thanks so much.
Okay. Please stand up and tell us your name.
Thank you. I'm Juan. Well, this is not much of a question, but aligned with what you just said. Yeah, music and sound is really good for us as individuals, but also socially. And I want to make a special mention to the One Love Peace concert that Bob Marley held in Jamaica. There was this big civil war breaking down in Jamaica. And Bob Marley offered this concert, and what was amazing is that people say that a week ago, the two sides of the civil war were fighting a lot, wanting to murder each other. And they say that in this concert, these two sides were dancing and chanting all as one love. And I want to mention that because really the power of music for us as individuals, but also socially, it's huge. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to hear you all, because really music it's the world. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have a question? I'll just mention I do a lot of work in the social impact and purpose space, and with leaders and different cultures, and as a social connector across countries and cultures, and music's a phenomenal tool.
I got the mic right here.
Okay, there we
Hi,
go.
my name is Monique Nicole Moreno. In my business and being here, I want to expand sensory experiences. I do professional cuddling, so intentional touch, but wanting to bring music. And two-part question that I would love to get as far as direction to partner with companies. One, in private client facilitation, what would be a great source as far as a recliner that helps with music in breaking through trauma and addiction, anxiety? And the other part for direction is what would be a great company business to partner with in creating group and gatherings where it's about connection and celebration. Does that make sense, my question?
Let me just break it down for everybody. I guess the first one, are you speaking, you're talking about a recliner, so you're talking about a sonic sound bed or a sound healing chair?
Correct.
Does one of you guys?
Yeah, I can talk to you about both a number of things in that space, events, form factors, and otherwise. So I'd love to connect with you afterwards.
I'm going to connect with you afterwards.
Good, great.
Right, anybody
Thank you,
else?
I appreciate it.
Sure, thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you.
There's up here. Please stand up and give us your name, please.
Gentleman, such a gentleman, thank you. Hi.
Hold the microphone up close to you.
My name is Saudi, obviously not a singer. I want to thank all of you because individually you've contributed to my growth from a teenager to an adult, and thank you so much. I enjoyed your music yesterday and came in today midway, and it was beautiful. I wanted to talk to you about this idea of bringing music back into the schools, and I know that there is this, I live in Santa Monica, California. I used to live in San Francisco, but We still have some music programs, or at least I still see kids carrying instruments around, but I don't think that the depth of the music experience is being brought to the school. It's become sort of like a chore, sort of like an activity that you do, as opposed to bringing the passion in the texture that you guys have all explained today here. And I'm wondering what you see in terms of the future of education for music and what can be brought to the schools just to improve that. Thank you.
You're doing well with that. Do you want to
Well, I can speak a little bit to it. I mean, first, I think we just need to look at the state of education. I mean, the really sad reality is that the arts are not being prioritized. And what we know is that when you bring the arts into education, it actually helps kids in all ways, whether it's with social emotional learning or whether it's with academics. So I'm with you on that, 100%. I think it's, there's a political conversation to be had about it, which is, it's not a priority. And my husband actually works in San Francisco Unified, and it's sad is what it is when you have 20 minutes a week to learn an instrument. Because actually what's happening in 20 minutes a week is that maybe that kid's having the best moment of his week, and that's all that's happening, right? So that's the state of public education. I think the possibilities are amazing. As an example, with Ripple Effects, this company that I'm working with right now, they actually are bringing an entire social emotional learning platform into programs, intervention programs, to actually help kids, and a lot of kids that are in social challenged environments. So kids facing trauma, kids that actually are having challenges in schools, and so they're using all different types of learning, about 10 different types of learning, and music is one of them. And so, we know that kids from very, very young can learn all kinds of things through music. And often kids with learning disabilities can learn different subjects if they actually are bringing it into the schools. So there's I think, a huge opportunity, and really it comes right down to the districts. Are they going to give a priority to something that there's plenty of research out there right now saying, you can accelerate learning if you bring the arts into it, and especially music. And I think, do you want to talk about the program that you did?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd like to look at, and when we look at music and education, and Adam spoke a little bit about this in his talk, and what they're doing, but one of the things that we can do in technology is to look at is, music's been taught for the last 500 years in Western civilization as a performance and entertainment device. Mm-hmm. And it's probably one of the strongest emotional resources and support systems that kids have in their pocket every day to help them be motivated, focused, emotionally regulate, do a number of things, socially connect. So what I think is really important is not just getting music programs into school in the traditional way, but bringing music programs, or just a music awareness of what kids already have access to, of how they can better use it and understand it. And technology and programs that people are developing in this community, and what you're doing, what Adam's doing, can really help us do that. I did a pilot in the LA Unified, which is the largest public school system in America, and it's quite, I won't criticize, but there's a lot of criticism. But it was basically teaching social, emotional, and life skills through music and through what we call super learning. So really, music is an integrated modality. I really try to look at music and almost everything I do as an integrated component of a multiple modalities. So we were using mindfulness and meditation and movement and other areas, but and storytelling. But music is like the emotional glue that gets them into the space and feel safe, so they can actually express themselves. And they have this resource. Almost every kid over 9 has a smartphone now. So within that, there's this. They can have apps that are social emotional learning apps that are help, or Focus at Will, that could be developed for kids at schools, and all kinds of tools that there's a real opportunity within the space. I have to say the funding is abysmal. So, sometimes we have to build things for theaters and for car companies and stuff to fund these things, or we, get grants, or we do other things that, until we shift the awareness. But I think there's a massive opportunity, and the efficacy of when kids get access to how it affects them and how they respond. I mean, we did some assessments that I'm happy to share, and I'm happy to share a short film of the program if you want to reach out to me. But it's amazing. I mean, it's just, and they pick it up right away, and they can pick it up from 5 years old. They can recognize exactly what music does to them emotionally, how they're being manipulated by music within a film or a game. That, they're very smart about it. Anyways, I didn't mean to take over that.
Can I riff off for a second? Yeah, super important question. Personally, I was lucky enough to have some strict European parents to push me to do music, right? Private lessons and whatever else. But I mean, how many people here think music and sound is the way to get us to where we need to be as a society? I mean, hopefully a lot, right? It's like that. We have that. That's I don't want to say silver bullet, but I mean, it is. I think a couple points to make. I have a really good friend who has a daughter that is in Santa Monica, actually, and she'll kill me for saying this, but I'm surprised that they're still teaching, with all due respect to sort of older instruments, how to play the cello, how to play the violin, which is amazing. But one of the things that's fascinated me about music creation over the last 10 years is the democratization of the tools. You can make huge sounds on a screen of this size, right? And I wonder if sort of introducing that interface in music education to kids is the way to go. And on my last point is, on the funding side, I mean, we're in Silicon Valley. These companies need to step up. The Apples of the world, the Googles of the world, they're making so much money off of music through these things. They have to step in and start to do some things, because it's going to always be like the race to the bottom unless some of these companies that are making tons of money off of music give back to the community, and that's what I think. Good question.
Thank you, everybody. That's awesome. Maybe, Adam, do you mind sharing something? You're deep in this field. You've done a lot of work, and you're a neuroscientist in the room, and I don't have one on the panel, and I'm sure you have plenty to say, but even maybe just add a perspective or a question if you want.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what is so exciting, I really appreciate all the work that you're doing, all of you, and that's what I find most inspiring, is the integration of different people's visions that you all have. You all have your own unique focus and your own pathway, but bringing them together and really thinking about how the impact of sound and music might cross, and I think someone you already mentioned it, Frank, like the mindfulness, meditation, body movement, visual, it's all part of what makes us human. All these little pieces come together to this coherent whole that is our experience. And music and rhythm is such a core part of it, but it's part of a system. And so, while you're all talking, I'm thinking about all the other little ingredients that come together to give that, that recipe a full meal. But, that's, in a lot of ways, with music and rhythm alone, you already have a wonderful banquet. But I do think that there's such potential to integrate across all of the different offerings that lead to that rich experience. But I applaud you all on being so innovative and so passionate. It's really exciting to hear, so thank you.
Great. And John, we haven't heard from you in a minute.
I would
you want to share something before we wrap up? We just have
one idea that I think is really important around is that maybe some of the findings from companies like Adams are going to give us the metrics to go back and let's look at societally. We need to have that kind of mind shift where music was always the thing that was last on the list and budget. When schools ran out of money, they cut that. So now there's metrics, there's information. How come we're not pitching the state governments and going back and showing the importance of it? And hopefully through TransTech and some other communities, we'll have new ammunition to do that, to change. I think it's about a real mindset shift that needs to happen.
Yeah, well, and the evidence, right? I mean, one of the pieces when I think back at, we had millions of people playing commercial music games, right? We can all say, oh yeah, we were connected, but we didn't have any evidence that it was changing something in our brains. We didn't have any evidence about the moods that were changing or the depression that was, being reduced. And so I think now one of the things that's so exciting about this field is that, a bunch of us are now working with scientists, we're working with educators, like we're getting the evidence such that we can take the things that we already know from the commercial side into a way to really make change. And I think that that's exciting. I mean, it takes a long time, which means that we also need to make experiences in the commercial area and get them out into the field so that they can touch people, and at the same time, get the evidence. And so, anyway, I'm with you on the educational piece. I'm happy to talk with you. There's a lot going on there, and yeah.
And a lot of evidence.
Yeah.
And, I don't separate wellness from education, because wellness is the foundation of education. You can't have learning without wellness. So it's a really important area to look at child wellness within the education field, but to also look at it through the area of wellness, which is the foundation of learning. And then just in the technology space, a big thing we talked about today and a number of speakers have spoken about is which I think can completely change and accelerate the research game, is these closed loop systems. So, imagine now you have, a big scale game or a big scale musical experience that goes out to, 500 million people, which isn't unrealistic in a successful program in the commercial world. And those people are we're catching real-time biometrics. I mean, that could never be done in a lab over 50 years or 100 years. So we're gonna, when we get into if people really put their mind to this technology of how do we capture the biometrics, how do we personalize it as a wellness tool, and how do we accelerate that at a level by using technology and delivering really quality content and measuring it to each individual. I mean, that's gonna be a game changer. And so the research won't have to really necessarily be, the lab studies are really important and really critical, and they're still kind of the benchmark, but at the same time, we'll be able to be getting data from massive groups of people in real world settings. And I think that's really the game changer that we can all come together on. Can we give you a mic? I'm sorry. Just I want them to hear you in the world.
Yeah, anyone that's interested in that in particular, we have not publicly announced this, but Neuroscape, our center at UCSF, is just about to launch with a big corporate partner who we have not announced a project on using biometrics, especially multimodal biosensing in the lab, where we could capture a lot for music, particularly, to understand the state of a person, the stress. Is it positive? Is it negative? Are they in flow? Are they drowsy? Are they aroused? A lot of this is invisible, even to the person themselves, maybe in some ways. And so we're about to launch that in 2020. So anyone that has interest in that particular area of rich data, not like after the fact, not like, oh, you were bored during that, like while it's happening, as close to real time as possible. That's the goal. I think it's like an incredible machine learning challenge, and one that has like all the potential to do, the type of closed loop systems we were talking about.
Great. On that note, we've run out of time, and I appreciate your precious time and everybody who's come here from afar to join us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to or come speak to us afterwards. I invite you, and please spread the word and build some great technology and some great programs that can make a difference. Let us know how we can support you.
Thank you.
Thank you.